है गाइस, स्वागत है आप सबका मेरे चैनल सुनो कहानी में, जहां हम पढ़ रहे थे शिमला अफेयर बाय सृष्टि चौधरी। इनकी दो बुक ऑलरेडी मैंने अपलोड कर दी है, जो कि है ललन स्वीट्स एंड वंस अपॉन अ कर्फ्यू। तो दोनों बुक बहुत ही अच्छी है, बहुत बेहतरीन है। अगर आप चाहते हो तो आप जाकर वो भी सुन सकते हो, रीड कर सकते हो, क्योंकि उसकी स्क्रीन रिकॉर्डिंग की वीडियो मैंने अपलोड कर रखी है। और आज हम लोग पढ़ने जा रहे हैं शिमला अफेयर, वही उनकी बुक है, सेकेंड चैप्टर। और देखते हैं कि आगे कहानी में क्या होता है, क्योंकि फर्स्ट वीडियो में सिर्फ मैंने फर्स्ट चैप्टर ही अपलोड किया था, जहाँ पे वो चार्ल्स से मिलती है जब वो जाती है वहाँ पुलिस स्टेशन। अब देखते हैं आगे क्या होता है। At first, he was just another British guest who walked into the hotel, and I recited to him routinely, "Hello, welcome to Royal Hotel Simla. How may I help you?" His yellow hair glistened with raindrops, and water still dripped on the brown overcoat he wore. His eyes were the lightest color of blue, but his eyebrows had no color at all. Merging into his light skin, he stood directly across the desk from me, his face level with mine. His wet umbrella was dangerously close to my desk. A moment passed and he smiled, and I found myself smiling back. My name is Charles Naylor, he said. He sounded friendly, his voice an ocean of calm, his eyes earnest, the corner of his lips curved upward in a perpetual smile, and he seemed warm and sun-kissed despite the rain outside. Time seemed to stop when I looked into his smiling eyes. I am here on behalf of the Viceroy's office to have a look around the hotel. I standard walkabout, considering the Viceroy will be here at the summer jubilee ball this season. Of course, Mr. Naylor. He had a deep, piercing look about him that seemed to shorten the distance between us. I wondered if my hair was in place and if my sari was draped properly. I am Nalini Mistry. My sister Noor told me you would be coming. He gave me another smile that could almost have been cheekly, and it disarmed me for a second. "It's a pleasure to meet you, and please call me Charles." I had never had an English guest speak in such a familiar manner, certainly not offer me his first name, and I didn't know whether it was real or just a ploy. But there was a kind of magic in his voice that made me want to trust him instantly, although I found myself incapable of responding to what he had just said. I stepped away from my desk. "If you would like, I could take your damn coat and you could warm up by the fireplace first." I tried to take the coat, but he seemed scandalized and instead walked over to the coat hanger in the corner of his own. I then led him towards the welcoming fireplace. "It's a beautiful hotel, Miss Mistry," he said, looking around, and without a reason I found myself tongue-tied. I stood quite acutely conscious of myself, of how he towered over me, how his hair was light and short and mine dark and long, how he was so white and I was not, of how he was a man, an Englishman, and I, his opposite. "I am sorry if I disturbed your day," he said immediately, when I still had not reacted. "I have been a bit late." I shook my head honestly, again surprised that he wondered whether he had disturbed me. Most guests did not extend the courtesy. "Please call me Nalini," he said, finally recovering. He nodded, walking next to me as I led him around, feeling important and professional. Even though I walked through the hotel all the time, its beautiful captivated me each time. Exquisitely woven carpets dressed the floor, and European art pieces hung on the walls. The lobby smelled of rich wood and fresh mountain air that came in bursts when the main doors opened. French windows provided glimpses of the forest outside. Simla was the center of activity and gossip, and Royal Hotel Simla was at its cusp. I pushed open the door to the dining room and let him enter first. Glass chandeliers crowned the room, hanging over the teak wood furniture our father had arranged from Burma. This was my favorite part of the hotel. I loved when it came alive during mealtime, when the chatter of forks and knives and the clink of wine glasses. I showed Charles the view from the windows, and he nodded in approval. "Behind those doors is the kitchen. My sister Afrin cooks there for the guests. She is a wonderful chef, although not quite a people's person. We offer European and Indian cuisine. Would you like to try something?" "No, thank you," he said, smiling, still smiling. "But if the invitation remains open, I would love to back another time." When he spoke, his eyes sparkled, teasing, running away, and looking for jokes and loopholes. I was shocked by my sudden descent into babbling, but it seemed as if he was unable to stop myself. "You are welcome here any time," I said, and realized that I meant it, and that I hoped he would come back. I led him out across the lobby to the other side, and this here is the rummy room, or the saloon. These chairs were centered on circular tables, while chaise sofas dotted the edges of the room. It's before lunch, so it's empty, but in the evenings guests start pouring into it to play cards, gossip, and smoke. I waved towards the doors at the other end of the room, and through there is a ballroom. It's also stunning. He followed me into the ballroom and looked around in delight. I beamed with pride. White curtains were drawn across the large windows, beneath which shone the teak wood wall panels, the tapping of our feet against the wooden floor, and our voices against the high walls reverberated in the empty room. It's glorious, he said, looking up at the brass chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. The ball would be wonderful. I suppose you would attend it, I asked uncertainly. I think I would, he said. What's that door? That's the servant passage, I said. It's lead back to the kitchen so serv- servants can come here without going through the guests. He asked to go in, and I led him through the passage, which was narrow and dimly light with lamps. And those stairs on the other side. Those lead to some of the servants' quarters. The rest are in the outhouse. On the other side are the bunkers, I said. There are bunkers? The Englishman who originally built the hotel was always very scared that the natives would gather and turn against him, bringing about his gory death. He wanted to secure the place from any possible conflicts with the sepoys, so he built the bunkers. They are of no use today, but I think they might even be connected to some tunnels. Really? I heard he was very paranoid after the is- Sepoy mutiny in 1857. In the dim light of the tunnels, I could see him staring at me curiously. I felt the need to explain more. Several of our guests often gather to smoke opium in the bunkers. It is somewhat of a secret place for very special people. We have a very good quality opium because our father's business and our guests made it a habit of meeting here, smoking opium and swapping stories. My sisters would not appreciate me openly telling an English officer this secret, but I somehow felt that I could trust him. Have you always lived here? Or rather, how do three Indian women end up running a hotel in Simla? As I understand, it is not a common here for lone women to inherit establishments such as this, neither in my part of the world, to be honest. It was our father who owned the hotel. My boss echoed back to me in the dimness and emptiness of the tunnels. I am not sure if you have heard this story, but he was not a favorite of the government. He spoke his mind fairly and was arrested often, got embroiled in the legal notice. When he died, all that he owned was taken over. Luckily, this hotel was spread and we were allowed to remain there. I'm sorry to hear that, he said in a quiet voice before going down the stairs to take a quick look at the bunkers, which were dark and bare. I followed him cautiously, careful to maintain an appropriate distance between us. I hoped Noor would not notice that I took him down here on my own. We came back up and went out to the front gardens. Now that it had finally stopped raining, the sun peeked out from the behind a cloud. The gardens were freshly manicured and the grass appeared freshly and springly. I caught his thought. The whole garden will soon be bursting with flowers. Musk roses, geraniums, fuchsia, and lilies everywhere, even the purple ones. Oh, that sounds wonderful. My favorite is the daisy, I told him, unsolicited. Really, but why? It's the most common flower out there. I think I even saw some on the way here. That's precisely why. It does not have any ears. It can grow anywhere, in the forest or by the pavement, behind the bushes or along the river. Yes, but it's really not that special then. It's just a common daisy. Mr. Nair, that's why it's so nice. He looked taken aback by his name being called out, and I wondered for a second whether I had been too familiar his smell. So, you don't like roses? He asked. Well, aren't they so much more work? They have to be grafted and taken care of, but daisies can be planted anywhere and they will thrive, just like a good actor who can be given any role and embody it with their soul. He laughed again. I liked the sound. I wanted to make him laugh more. You like the movies? He asked me. I love the movies. I want to be an actor one day, I said, again surprised by my inability to stop talking. I wanted him to know me. He was about to say something when I suddenly noticed what was happening at the edge of the garden. Khusali ji was trying to chase away a couple of monkeys with his stick, but one of them attempted to escape and head towards the hotel. Oh no, I yelled and lifted the bottom of my sari to prevent it from getting wet on the damp grass and ran towards the monkey. Stamping my feet hard on the ground, I attempted to shoo him away. The monkey paused to make a show of sitting and watching me get mad. I stamped my foot yet again, but the monkey refused to budge, clutching the apple he had picked up from under a tree. Kusaliji, give me your stick. If you are done with those other two, he rolled the stick over to me with momentum, and I picked it up, brandishing in it with the direction of the monkey, which made him stand up in attention. You little idiot, this is the third time this week that you are annoying me. The monkey is finally took the hint and decided to get up and leave with some pride, but not before he looked back on one more time, took aim at me and threw the apple with conviction. I was not surprised though and dodged it. Now running after him, my sari held up on one side. I chased him across the garden right until he reached the lemon tree and climbed up swiftly, hopping across the wall to jeer at me from the safety at the perch. Giving him one last derived stare, I walked back to Charles, who stood with his mouth open. I guess welcome to Royal Hotel Simla. But don't you worry, there won't be any monkeys on the evening of the ball. Right, Khusali ji? I asked as our cus- custodian came by. None, Nalini, Nalini Saiba, he said, bowing. His had an old wrinkled face and a white moustache that he attempted to keep neat, but his failing eyesight foiled these attempts. This is Khusali ji. I introduced him to Charles, hoping to distract him from the monkeys. He takes care of everyday things around the hotel, managing the servants and the housekeeping staff, making sure that monkeys are kept at bay. And don't be fooled, he may be half blind, but he sees things everyone misses, and he has the ears of a bat. Nalini Saiba, you never miss a chance to call me a bat, he jokingly complained. I laughed and was glad to see Charles join in. Come, let's get back inside. I am here to show you our special Oriental Bazaar. A corner of the foyer had been turned into a shop, an Oriental Bazaar. For the guest, Begum Jan displayed her wares there, and we sold them together for a profit. Released yesterday, she was back and gave Charles special greeting, peering at him from behind her downcast eyes, sitting amidst handicrafts and curiosities. So, one can buy things. That's right, Mr. Naylor. Instead of having to venture into the local market, we give our guests a chance to shop for local talent right here. Would you like something, Sahib? Begamjan asked, and I hoped it was only I who heard the teasing in her tone. He shook his head. We then added up to the library. It's not that big, I admitted. We get a lot of English people, so of course they leave their books all over. We have another Parsi gentleman who gives us many books. You can read all your Dickens, Shakespeare, whatever. He chuckled, looking around at the bookshelves. Dickens, Shakespeare, whatever, and what do you like to read, Miss Mystery? Mystery? I stared at him before answering. Tagore, Gandhi, Sarojini, Naidu, Mulkraj, and Anand. I was suddenly aware that we were completely alone in this small room, standing quite close to each other. Impressive, he said. I am glad you think so, Mr. Naylor, he said. I said, stepping out. Charles. Oh, yes, I suppose so. He laughed again. So you live here at the hotel? I nodded. Earlier, all of us sisters slept in the one room on the topmost floor, but since last year, my elder sister moved into her own room. It's not such a big waste. Her room is a bit damp to be good enough for a guest anyway. Must be exciting. I suppose you just wake up and start working on things around the hotel. Yes, I replied, puzzled at his question. Why? What do you do? He thought about it for a moment and chuckled. I suppose much the same. Wake up and go to work. I do try to write in my diary every day before breakfast, though. Sometimes it's the only moment I meet myself in the entire day. You meet yourself? That sounds appropriate. How is to meet yourself? He stopped walking because it seemed he had so much to think about this. Every day is different and insightful. Not to say I know myself better, but the quest remains. And what about you? I felt confronted with a question that I had not thought about too much before. I don't know. I suppose I could say I meet myself sometimes when I am in front of the mirror pretending to be different characters from a movie, but I could not say that's meeting myself. Could I? That's perhaps rather meeting a fantasy of myself, a version of me filtered through another's mind. Oh, look, I can't stop talking. Anything else I can help you but with regarding the hotel, Mr. Naylor? Charles suddenly seemed to remember that he was really there to see the hotel. No, I suppose we are done then. I walked him back down to the lobby. It was very nice to meet you and thank you for the tour of the hotel. It is beautiful. Very much like yourself. I blushed, barely able to reply. It was nice to meet you as well. He started to put on his coat. Well, have a good day then and see you around. I nodded, suddenly too shy to say anything more, and turned around as he left. I walked back absentmindedly to my desk, our conversation replying in my head, still in a daze over a encounter. He had seemed like such a nice man, polite, charming, handsome. I wondered if he was already married and immediately cheated myself on thought. He was English working for the administration in Simla, but he had been so sweet. There was magic in his voice and the way that his eyes danced, always on the lookout for the next exciting thing. There he was standing again in front of my desk, almost as if I had summoned him with my thoughts. Oh, Mr. Nail, sorry, Charles, I mean, would you like to meet me for a tea? At Devicos in town, he asked the question in a rush, as if afraid that I would take them to be too much. I tried my best to hide my surprise. He scratched his head and looked at me uncertainly. Am I being culturally inappropriate? I moved here only some weeks ago for my service, and while Simla has a lot of going on, I am always with my people. It would be lovely to get to know you as you are. Well, you and also you know Simla and all the flowers here, he added lamely. I giggled and had to keep a hand on my mouth so he would not think me rude. I don't know, I would have to get permission from my sister. She has never really allowed me to go out with a man. He nodded, looking more content again. Well, at least it means it's not a no from you. I thought about what he had just said, also not a yes. He laughed and turned around to leave, his smile bright. The Saturday after next, day 3 in the afternoon, if your sister permits, of course. Noor was at her wits and preparing for the big day. She had finally managed to find a Parsi family whose son had been posted as a suitable match for Afrin. They were residents of Bombay and were fully aware of our family's past reputation, about our father's death, and how our larger family had ostracized us and had still chosen to consider Afrin as a suitable bride. If they liked her and all went well, Afrin would be married and settled and Noor's wish be fulfilled. We put our best foot forward, providing his family or our most luxurious rooms, serving rich portions of dal, bati, gatta, curry, moong dal, halwa, and even jungly maas with deer from the woods around Simla. Afrin played the role of a quiet bride, dressed in a pale pink sari, not speaking much, quite unlike her normal self. I dutifully kept my head down as well, watching from the corners, listening to the elders talking in their astonishment when they saw the three of us manage the hotel among ourselves. The path seemed paved for a smooth engagement. The prospective groom remained mostly quiet as his father and brothers led the conversation. I glanced over at Afrin, wondering how she managed to hold her tongue. Perhaps she too had finally understood the wisdom in going ahead with the path Noor laid out of her, in accepting what fate had in store rather than fighting the curse of destiny. Or maybe she didn't want to be a further brother to our eldest sister, saddle her with more responsibilities and vexes that she already had. I too saw Noor's innocent face of all that she had given up to take care of us and felt that the greatest gift we could give her would be the married and be another's responsibility. 5 years ago, when the ship our father was on sunk on its way to Karachi, British administration found the perfect opportunity to depict him as a thief, fabricating that he stole the community funds for personal gain. They alleged that he had been trying to escape with all the money, but we knew that this could not be further from the truth, as he had given all that he had to fight against British injustice. We had not even known that he was on the ship. He had strict orders to remain in Bombay, arrested as he had been several times. Our father's opium business and assets had been seized, allowing our relatives to come at us like vultures and take the spoils. But Noor, widowed for some years and now in charge, negotiated the hotel for us. We were allowed to live there and run in one on one condition, that all three of us stay confined to the boundaries at the hotel and town that contained it, where we could be watched until we were married and part of another family, and in which case we would not be allowed to inherit the hotel anyway. Crossing these boundaries would spell arrest and seizures, losing any bit of stability that they were willing to spare us now. If all three of us were to be married, then the hotel would simply pass on to the government again. If we had not been bound by the agreement that confined us here, we too perhaps might have been suitable matches arranged for us in Bombay, would be welcomed in our community circles. We heard that women were allowed more outward facing roles now under the Mahatma, who had opened schools for children. Women were even studying law and pursuing other avenues that until then had only been the preserve of men. If we were not branded as daughters of a traitor, we too might have been at the forefront of all the new excitement of a new favorite that had come against the British. Yet now, as I stood here looking at the eventual fate written out for me with unease, my childhood dreams seemed to slip away from me. I wondered if Noor was thinking about her own marriage, brutally cut short by a violent bout of tuberculosis that took away her husband's life in 2 weak years. Afrin getting married would be the fruit of her labor, especially when everybody around us had wondered how the three of us would possibly get on in life. Therefore, when the family agreed and Afrin's marriage was finally fixed, joy and despair threatened to tear me in half. Joy for our family, who could regain some respect with Afrin being accepted in a reputable family, and despair of myself, as in the course of a few months my life too would be pushed in the same direction. Only one thing made me uneasy: Afrin's willing acceptance. Uh, Agreeing to everything quietly was so unlike her that I watched her constantly ready for an outburst or a declaration which would not be surprising at all. Some months ago, she had told us quite simply that she would be dedicating her life to Satyagraha, to Bharat. Thankfully, she mentioned nothing of the sort as long as the groom's family was here, and in fact tolerated all the traditional demurely. So once they left after 3 days with the promise of a quick wedding, we basked in the warmth of a successful alliance. But that is the unfortunate nature of happiness. It's only so sweet because it is fleeting. Little did we know back then, as we laughed and cried that night with Afrin's bubble of joy enveloping us all, that our lives were quite suddenly going to be uprooted in the most tumultuous of ways. I stole some minutes to decide which sari I would wear when I met Charles, although I had not asked Noor's permission yet. Now that we were free once Afrin's intent in-laws left, I could think about Charles again. My thoughts repeatedly harked back to the moment he had returned to the hotel and asked me without wasting a breath if I would like to have tea with him. I chuckled as I remembered his shock upon seeing me chase away the monkey. He seemed to have liked me for me, even though I had told him I preferred reading Tagore over Shakespeare. Perhaps, despite our circumstances, I stopped myself from thinking beyond that. I moved over to a friend's cupboard in the room that would soon only belong to me. Looking through her saris, I saw a pale blue one with a white border of lotuses, and I thought it might too do the trick, draping it loosely over my body. I was pleased to see that it flattered me, deciding that it would be perfect. As I tried to shut the cupboard drawer again, it felt like it was stuck. I shook in a few minutes, but it seemed like something was definitely caught behind it, making it difficult for me to push it all the way in. I took the drawer out with some effort and reached it to find the cause of disruption. It was a gun, a revolver, like the ones I sometimes saw in the hands of policemen, and always only from a distance. The metal felt cold in my hands and a lot heavier than I had ever expected a gun to be. I examined it more closely near the lantern, and with a charging realized that it seemed real enough. I kept my fingers well away from trigger, not wanting to shoot it by a accident, unsure whether it had any bullets. My heart beat faster as I tried to fathom why my sister had a revolver in her possession. I knew she did mad things sometimes, like spending evenings playing cards with the women of the lower bazaar, writing furious letters to newspaper and magazines, protesting their articles, and once she had attempted to start her own salt march from the hotel to town until Noor forbade her. But how could Afrin possibly get access to a gun? I knew I had to find out what Afrin was up to, and so I decided to wait for the right moment to ask her. Afrin was up. Little did I know then that I would end up waiting too long, unaware that the storm of our undoing was on the horizon, just beginning to show its black clouds. To my relief, Charles was waiting for me outside Devico's tea room, dressed in a suit, his coat in his arms. If he had already gone, it was not sure that I would be allowed inside, but with him in the lead, I went in after we had said our greetings. The beautifully polished hardwood floors welcomed us in, and we entered a large tea room that looked quite like our hotel ballroom. Bouquets of holly and white roses garnished the walls, and beautiful centerpieces set next to excite executive brass candlestands on the tables. Glass tent lights adorned the ceiling, and white and golden drapes covered the windows. A band played at the back, and the sounds of violin and piano filled the room. Indians waited in distinct liveries served guests everywhere, carrying trays of dedicated tea pots, meringues on tiered serving stand, and bubbling champagnes in elegant long-stemmed glasses. Silver plates and cutlery furnished the table. As we were seated, I felt eyes follow my every move, with my dark hair braided with a single flower resting on top, and a sari trailing behind me. I stood out among the long skirts and gowns, evening hats, and wide gloved hands. I was well used to ignoring the looks at the hotel. After all, they were the ones on my territory. But how it felt as though I had trespassed upon something exclusive. Noor had reluctantly agreed to let me accompany Charles. I had to keep the desperation out of my voice while asking her, reminding her again and again that refusing a simple tea would not reflect well on us and our hospitality. She had finally agreed, asking me to make it clear to Charles that I was there only out of politeness. Are you all right? Charles asked me with a smile. I nodded. I always heard guests talk about this place but did not realize it so lovely. Why haven't you been here? I don't think I would be allowed here. I think most ordinary Indians are not allowed to be in this part of the mall. It suddenly seemed to dawn on him. The reality of what I had just said, the reality of me, how easy it would be to someone like him, unaware that the very fact of being here was a privilege. I suddenly felt like leaving. He seemed to guess as much and extended his hands and towards my side of the table. I am sorry, please forgive me my ignorance. I am glad to be in your company. His overtures immediately warmed my heart and I smiled and nodded. Despite everything, it felt wonderful to dress up and be waited on my Charles. He ordered us tea and pastries and I felt lighter again. Sorry, I have not said it until now, but you look very beautiful, he said without a slightest hint of shyness, and I looked him in the eye, not buying it. You are flattering me. He seemed scandalized that I should suggest that. No, honestly, why would I need to lie about the most obvious thing in the world? And what would I gain by lying? I laughed, realizing his point. Well, you have hair the color of mangoes. That's beautiful too. He scratched his head uncertainly. Well, I can live with that. Our tea arrived and I sipped it slowly, telling him it eluded me why somebody would prefer this over Indian chai. He chuckled and said it eluded him why anyone would ruin the taste of proper tea by containing it with the we do. How did you come to be in India, Charles? Same as everybody else here, a very strict father who made sure I got the best education so I could clear the civil service examinations. Serving in a faraway lad, land meant seeing the world, a dream that would have been inaccessible to me without this job. And why did you want to serve me in a faraway land and not where you are from? I suppose it's rather extravagant wish. He laughed. Well, I can blame my grandfather for that dream. As a child, I spent a lot of time with him, and he always had his eyes set on the world far and beyond. He could never manage to go far from his village, but he loved reading the tales of travelers and explorers, the histories of trade routes, and the building of empires, diaries, and letters written on ships sailing across the world. He always said there are three places in the world he wants to see with me. The point where the world ends in the north, the coasts of Ceylon, and the ancient city of Rome. He did not have the health for the first two, but just before I came here, I could take him to Rome. A few months later, he died, and I was unable to go back for his funeral. So I vowed to myself that I will never go to Ceylon on the northern end of the world. Although that should not be too hard, I suppose. I am sorry to hear that. I know what it feels like to lose someone you admired. I suppose you can. I smiled, but you are still here. Do you like what you have seen so far? It has been a privilege. How small my mind would have been if I had only ever stayed where I was born. I have just arrived in Shimla. It's quite different from Calcutta, which was such a huge, bustling city, and it was amazing to see all these people going about their lives, all their worlds so different but still progressing. Simultaneously, seeing the world is perhaps the best way to learn about oneself. It does take its toll, however, you are always the outcast, never at home. Most of all, I miss my family terribly. That made me feel sad for him. I wondered how I would feel if I ever managed to leave for America. I could not imagine living without my two sisters, all alone in a foreign land where no one knew me. But perhaps that was the price of following a dream. How many brothers and sisters? A younger brother and a sister, the youngest. It would be unfair to have a favorite, but she is just a piece of my heart. Every time I go back, which has been only twice since I have been here, she makes a larger poster, stands at the train station with my parents, and follows me all around. I know I am here. I am her favorite too. She loves those moments when she has all my attention. At least my parents get to be with my siblings, although I can't imagine how my grandmother will get over the betrayal of me living in India. I smiled as I imagined him as a doting older brother. And how about you? He asked. Well, our father spent his last year fighting the British in every possible way one could imagine. He wrote letters, maneuvered deals, went to court for other Indians who were fighting the fight, was arrested, and also spent the last 2 years of his life in house arrest in Bombay. Sometimes I think he even forgot about my sisters and I spent his life for just this one and only purpose to get India its freedom. 5 years ago, the boat he was on sank, and well, that was the end of it. Since then, my two sisters are the only family I have had. They mean everything to me. I'm sorry you lost so much, he said. I waved my hand, ignoring the sudden twist somewhere in the pit of my stomach. Everyone told me things are preordained, so nothing can be done about it, but I know at least that every new moment holds the promise of a lifetime, and that is how one must live. He smiled at that, and a silence took over as we both contemplated our lives. I looked around the establishment. People were now dancing around the ballroom, slowly moving to the soulful voltas. Would you like to dance too? He asked. The idea did not sit well with me. I don't want to stick out more than I already did, and I didn't want anyone to come and tell us that it was inappropriate for me to dance here. No, I can't, I said immediately. His face fell, and I realized he took it as a rejection, which was far from the truth. I didn't know how to explain my situation to him, how to make him understand my hesitation. I smiled instead and asked, shall I show you around town? He brightened up and immediately said yes, quickly paying for the high tea. I thanked him and we stepped out to walk through the mall. Beside us were a mixture of English men and women dressed in a frilly gowns and suits, trailed by their Indian servants with their neat black moustaches and electric attires. Boys out for a break for Bishop Convent School, and young girls on the arms of their mothers out on a day of shopping, looking around Station Ward. I turned to Charles. So you want to see other side of Simla? I don't know how much you have seen. You mean the lower bazaar? Yes, exactly. He nodded in curiosity. So I took him down the mall, descending into the lower bazaar. It could have been a different town. Houses with thatched roofs set one on top of the other, threatening to topple over. There seemed to be 100 teeny shops arranged haphazardly, surprising, superseding their boundaries and spilling over the to the main street. Clothes hung on washing lines and wooden boxes laid strewn about, their contents already pulled out and checked against the weighing scale. Gunny bags filled with vegetables, fruits, and earthenware were spread out on the ground ready for sale. I asked, with their heads wrapped in cotton scarves, hurried about with importance, purchasing what he had been instructed by the families. People sat outside their homes, soaking in the sun. Men huddled over a fire to grab the warmth. A group of little children surrounded us, begging for food, and when Charles smiled, they attempted to shake hands and they then ran away laughing. I love being here, I said, looking around. I love the mountain fresh air, the way everyone knows me at the hotel and in this community, and I can greet them easily. I love the people here who are nice and kind. It's the most amazing and perfect place yet. He looked at me curiously. Yet what? I found myself short of words, but I felt it at the base of my heart, at the pit of my stomach, that there was a restlessness fluttering inside me, and for some reason I wanted to tell him. Somehow I had the feeling that there was something out there waiting for me, and once I could reach that, my uneasiness would quell. My thoughts inadvertently moved on to movies that seemed to beckon me. I don't know, maybe life should be like the movies, full of excitement and adventure, he laughed. So, do you watch a lot of movies here? I laughed. I manage a few, and you, Mr. Naylor? Charles, I like to watch them as well. The last one was The Wizard of Oz. I clapped my hands in delight. My favorite, if only I could be Dorothy and the hotel could take me far away with the wind. She's my favorite movie character too, Charles said. To be honest, I am a little upset with Dorothy in the movie. And why is that? Everything about her, the journey she makes, her slippers, and the scarecrow and the tin man, but don't tell anyone. Still laughing, I led him back to up the hotel. We walked around a bit more before sitting down on a street side bench. And this is a scandal point, I said, as we settled in for a sweeping view of a town center and the mountains beyond. He looked around curiously. What's so scandalous about it? I giggled. It's an old story. Many years ago, the Maharaja of Pati, Patila fell in love with a Viceroy's daughter and took her away from this very point. The Viceroy was ready to declare war for his daughter to be returned. Really? Haha, it's just a stupid old tale. For one, I have been told that nothing of that sort happened, he chuckled. Sounds real enough to me. I suppose I would do the same if I was in love with women when it's not allowed, if she wants to. As well, of course. I laughed and he got up from the bench, extending his hands towards me. I hoped I could not tell how fast my heart was beating when I took it. I began walking again, but before we could take the road uphill, Charles gasped at a troop of monkeys running across. One of the monkeys jumped on him from the back, sat on his shoulder, and snatched away his hat before either of us could do anything. My head, Charles yelled as I tried to chase the monkey. It was too quick, however, and dashed up a nearby tree with the head. Charles ran to the tree, looking up at the branches in express expressions. I wanted to laugh but stopped myself and walked to the tree as well. He looked at me as if I might have a solution. I should have told you to be careful about your head. I am sorry, I said, afraid that I would start laughing and offend him. I looked up, trying to make noises to bring the monkey down. Charles gazed at me and up again. I saw it as he made up his mind. He went to the tree trunk and with a heave pulled himself up further and further. I watched in astonishment as he climbed the tree, going towards the monkey. With a start, the monkey dropped Charles' head, and I caught it with a flourish. I gave an excited round of applause as Charles climbed back down, jumping with a victorious thud. Well done, I said, still in awe. See, I can settle down well here. Can I not? He asked, visibly delighted with himself. I nodded, unable to stop laughing. You could get a job as a monkey, so it's an actual employable job. Oh, stop it. I am not joking at the Visarigal Lodge. I heard there used to be a whole bunch of staff who were there just to shoo away monkeys. On reaching the hotel, he looked at me with shining eyes and I took a step back, also unable to stop smiling. Thank you for such a nice time, I said politely. He nodded. Will we see each other again soon? Maybe. You are welcome at the hotel anytime. He nodded and I was not sure if he wanted to say something more. Then goodbye, Mr. Naylor. Oh no, wait. Charles. He chuckled, took off his hat with a small bow, and turned around, waving me goodbye. And watching his retreating figure, I felt a tug of longing. There are around 8 studios, and they decided everything, I said, following Noor around the hotel. And all of the movies are made in this 8, all of them. Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, Bringing Up Baby, and what was that one? Robin Hood. I know, Nalini, you have told me before, but can you imagine the atmosphere there? I heard in Bombay as well, a lot of movies are being made. What a world. Yes, what a world. But our world is here, in the hotel. So, would you go back to your desk now? Let me focus on answering this ridiculous letter. Why is it so ridiculous? I received an official letter asking me to describe the hotel in the greatest detail. How many rooms, how big it is, describing all the areas, whatever for. I have no idea, perhaps it's bureaucratic issue and they need to file away all the details of the establishment in Simla. Perhaps someone is writing a book. They should do something better than write about Royal Hotel Simla. Where is Afreen? I asked, looking around for her. I had not told Noor about the gun. I had found it in the cupboard. I had not even spoken to Afreen yet. Every time an opportunity was presented, I chickened out, afraid what I would find or near. Here, I prayed for a quick wedding so the gun world never come to Noor's attention. I don't know. I haven't seen her much since morning. Go look for her, please. Noor's nonchalant remark rang warning bells in my head as my stomach twisted with nervousness. I went to kitchen looking for her, but she was not there. Khusali ji joined my search for a friend, but I sent him back, telling him she must be in room. So I didn't want him to get suspicious and inform Noor. I didn't know whether I should be scared yet, but never. Ever since I had found the gun, I had a feeling something like this would happen. How did she manage to find the gun? Let the alone confidence to hold it. Instinctively, I went to our room to look for it. It was not there. Afrin was not in the hotel, and neither was the gun. I looked around the room to see if anything else was missing, but did not find anything amiss. Half of me wanted to run to Noor and tell her everything, but the other half was not even more scared of her breath. What if there was a simple explanation for it? Maybe Afrin had a newfound passion for hunting. I convinced myself that must be it, and decided to look for her in the forest. The air felt fresh, scented with pine, and I felt the cold seeping through my feet. I called out Afrin's name a few times, but my voice just echoed back. There was no signs that she had been here. The sun was still low in the sky at this time of the year, so it was quick dark as I ventured deeper inside. The trees started to close in on me as I worried for Afrin, and the gun had its old hold on me. Flashing imagine of what could go wrong. No, Afrin would not be here. I was pretty sure, and decided to go down to mall. Still refusing to give in to defeat and run to Noor for help. I went down the road quickly, looking around for my sister, hoping everything would be fine. Maybe she would just pop out from behind my back looking for me, telling me she was at the hotel all this time. That the gun was just a figment of my imagination. After all, why would a gun be there? Where would Afrin ever get it? It's true that sometimes she joined a local crowds who agitated against the British, but Noor had forbidden her from doing that, and there was no way in the world they would ever give her access to a gun. Perhaps the gun was not even Afrin's, and she had just kept it safely there for a hotel guest. I stood in front of Christ Church, looking around in despair. How would I ever find her? I would have to tell her Noor. And as soon as she found out that I knew more than I had let out in the past few days, she would be lived. All that she had managed, winning the trust of the family in Bombay, fixing the marriage only to have a friend run about wild. By some stroke of my luck, I saw a distant figure going around the bend of the mall. It was Afrin. I rushed in her direction, but she was far too ahead, and I didn't want to draw attention by calling out loudly. I tried to follow her, but she moved quickly and I found it hard to keep up. She was looking around frequently to see if someone was watching her, and that confirmed my earlier fear. What in the world was she up to? A friend took the way down to the lower bazaar, but instead of going into the bazaar, she led me into a tunnel I always tried to avoid. There were several tunnels in the city built through the hills around Shimla. The British had them hastily constructed as passage for coolies and mules transporting goods. These tunnels hid the natives and the animals from view, but they were not conscious, concretized and were always clogged with rainwater. I lifted my sari up, trying to avoid the puddles, dodging the other men and mules on the backs of whom lay goods that I tried not to knock her. I came up out at the other end, and I was surprised to be next to the slaughterhouse. I had lost a friend by now, bewildered that she had found some business in this part of the town. No respectable woman would be caught dead here. And a bad feeling settled deep inside of me. I was scared to find what was going on, afraid how it would upend our lives, but the love I bore for my sister forbade me to slow down. What if she was in trouble? What if she was in the clutches of dangerous people? Was she being hassled by some man, or perhaps the police? The streets were full of potholes and filled with muddy water, and I held the folds of my sari in my whole hands, looking around for a friend. At some point, it was impossible to save myself from getting dirty, and I had to give up. The low, tumbling basti got more confusing, and I realized I had no sense of where I was. The people sitting outside on the street stared at me as I walked by, obviously out of place. I was too scared to talk to any of them and looked for a friend's trail, but that was lost. I walked faster and faster through the basti, trying to get to its end, only to arrive straight back to the lower bazaar. Just at the other end, why did Afrin not take the direct route to get to the lower bazaar? Now the sun beat down on me, and I walked straight into the small gate that I assumed she might have gone through. I decided to have a quick look around. The buzz of the outside bazaar was missing here, and it was quiet enough that I could hear the birds. The house was so silent that they could have been abandoned. Only flocks of pigeons fluttered around. My fear intensified when I sensed movement behind me, but before I could react, my mind could even being to process any course of action. There was a loud thump on my head, and I felt myself collapsing. As conscience left me, my last thought was of a friend. I am 5 and I want to cross the road to visit my friend Simi, who lives across the road with her grandmother. She makes Simi the most stunning dolls. To reach Simi's house, I need to cross, but the road is full of stray dogs who growl and bark at me. I am too scared to step outside. Then a friend comes with her flaming hair and furious smile. She grabs our father's long stick and extends her other hand to me, pulling me slowly, telling me nothing will happen on the street. She bangs the stick on the ground and the dogs back away. I look on, amazed by my sister, the brave one, as breathtaking and beautiful as her name suggests. She escorts me all the way to Simi's house, giving me a little kiss on the cheek before bidding me goodbye, telling me to not to be afraid. I watch her walk back courageously alone and barking dogs, wielding her stick proudly, my sister Afrin. I tried to open my eyes and soft hum of noises grew sharper. For some reason, faces hovered in front of me, faces that I didn't know. Realizing that I was lying down, I tried getting up, but a dull pain overtook my head. I could not move my arms at all, and I realized they were tied up. I tensed up in terror such as I had never known before. I was alone, tied up, and completely vulnerable. And in front of me were two men I didn't know at all. They held guns in their hands and looked like they were not very happy with me. I tried to stop myself from passing out again. Suddenly, I remembered Afreen and looked around wildly. Perhaps she had been kidnapped as well, and I prayed to the Lord that they would take me to her so we could at least be together. I closed my mind and felt myself relax, imagining myself as a heroine captured by the evil force, pretending that there would be a way out or that a handsome man would come in and save us. I tried to think of what a heroine does in such a situation and decided to keep my eyes open and observe what was happening around me. The ringing in my ears stopped, and the man in front of me was talking, towering above me. How did you find out? Tell us, what brought you here? He banged his gun on a table close to me, and my hand spoon. I willed myself to focus, but I didn't have anything to say. I had been following a friend, and then I was here. What would they do with us? Their voices again faded out, and I tried to think of how to break away and for a friend. Look for a friend. I thought I was dreaming and blinked several times when a friend walked in through the door, apparently in a hurry. She was not tied up, but she did look worried as she rushed towards me. Before I could talk, she pressed something hot on my head, and although it stung at first, it later made me feel better. I might have fallen asleep again because when I woke up, my head felt lighter and I could immediately hear a friend's voice close to me. She looked close to tears, standing next to three men whom I didn't know, all wearing turbans and a guilty look on their face. The entire situation was so bizarre to me that it was still hard to believe I was not dreaming. What are you doing here? Afrin asked, still but remorseful. Now that my vision was not blurry anymore, I could see that she looked different. She was wearing one of her nicest sari and her hair was made up differently than usual. There were flowers and wind in her braids, although I didn't remember her dressing up like that in the morning. She was wearing bangles and looked more vibrant than usual. What is going on? My curiosity overtook my haze. Why did you come here? Did you follow me? I had no idea. They told me they have a woman here. I was appealed to see it was you. The other faces seemed to corroborate this story. Forgive us, Benji, one of the men said, folding his hands. Forgive us. She should not be here. It is no place for a woman. The other man lashed out. Afrin Bhabi, you have to be more careful. Guruji will be furious. And unauthorized woman. She is my sister. She will not betray us. Afrin responded swiftly. And who will guarantee that, huh? You. You didn't even know how you were being followed. Talk respectfully, brother. The third man intervened. A silence followed. Their conversation left me more puzzled than before. Who were the us Afrin was talking about? When they stopped speaking, I had another chance to observe my sister closely and saw what she was wearing around her neck. My heart dropped like a stone. Are you? Afrin, did you get married? Her downcast gaze was all it took to confirm what I had asked. Oh dear Lord, what had my sister done? I quickly offered a little prayer for her well being before surveying the man next to her and could immediately spot the one she had married. He was smartly dressed with a thin moustache that looked menacing when he did not smile, and eyes that surveyed you as if they knew all your secrets. Yet he had a kindly face that seemed to apologize to me. Although he seemed to be trying not to look so unbearably happy, and there was something about him that was so familiar. You are a guest at the hotel. I burst out louder than intent, and again their looks confirmed what I had just guessed. It was getting harder for me to understand what was going on. Why would a friend marry a hotel guest? Feeling overwhelmed, I tried to get up from where I was sitting down, but a friend held me back. Wait, listen first, listen. The man looked at her friend and said, she would have found out sooner or later, so we might as well. Then he turned to me again. My name is Ratan Rajput. People just call me Ratan Babu. My family are traders living in Bombay. This is not strictly relevant, but I feel you should know my story. I was betrothed when I was just 3 to a distant family infant daughter. I always had a rebellious streak, and as a teenager I point blank refused to honor that match. So my parents sent me off to England to study law. They thought it would help minimize the scandal and blame modernity for my refusal to honor the betrothal. None of what he said explained what he was doing married to my sister. What was even more alarming was that he was a Hindu. Afrin, on seeing the impatient look on my face, signaled me to stay calm. This is all just for context. I am sorry, I will try not to meander. 4 months ago, I first arrived at your hotel. I kept largely to myself, spending most of my time in the lower bazaar, attending meetings and realized in Kali Bari, the Arya Samaj Mandir, even the masjid. That's where I met Afreen, and in fact was surprised to learn that she was the one behind all the delicious meals at the hotel. So that's how they met. At least Afreen's choice was involved, and she had been hoodwinked into this marriage. And who are all these other people? I asked in a small voice, afraid to look at anyone but Afreen. She had her sari draped around her head, her face pleading. Ratan Babu took charge of the situation. Brothers, he declared, I will make sure that Afreen's sister will keep our secret. Now she's here, we cannot do much else. I ask you to trust me. There were disgruntled murmurs, but nobody said anything else. This sounded like something bigger than just a secret wedding. This is Azad Bhai, Afreen said, pointing to the man with a thin mustache who seemed smiled and folded his hands in a greeting. And this is Dr. Banerjee, she said, turning to the other man. I managed a small smile for them. I thought you were being harassed or in some kind of trouble. I tried to follow you to save you. I found the gun. Afrin answered quickly. No, I was not being harassed. They gave me the gun. They? We are all members of the Simla Circle, Nalini. In fact, that you will keep to yourself until your dying day, and they just help us get married. Stared her blankly. Simla Circle? A secret group, an organization with a long history, strong politics, and the tight truths. I don't understand. She signed before answering, but when she spoke, there was a hint of pride in her voice. We fight for our independence. The Congress does what it must, but there are many people who are tired of waiting around for freedom, of not being able to do anything. Several of these leaders, intellectual, underground workers, activities, civil servants, they all come together and created several such societies across India to fight a revolution. Many of these societies were boosted by the British, many disbanded, but several, like the Simla Circle, still operate in a secret. The man called Azad Bhai stepped next to Ratan Babu, keeping his hand on his shoulder. Our brother Ratan came to Simla and joined us in our goal to increase the resistance to overthrow the British rule. And why would not he come to us? The Simla Circle is the backbone of the freedom movement, the revolution. The Congress must engage in peace talks, non-violence, satyagraha, and so on. But without a real resistance, there is no chance of Bharat. What we do today will shape how hundreds of thousands of people live together tomorrow. Ratan Babu chimed in. I had heard whispers about Simla Circle for years, and it took me many months to find contacts that could bring here. I, too, like my parents, wanted to resist the British imperial rule. My family has embraced Satyagraha for years, but I am not sure that it will take us ahead. The Congress also supports the Simla Circle. As we do their dirty work, we find information for them, organize strikes, resistance, propaganda, raids, and even sabotage operations. We want independence, yet the way things are going right now, it is now here to on the horizon. Britain says help us in our war against the German, and we will think about your freedom. Why should we, innocent Indians who have never laid foot in Europe, give our lives for those people in and their land? More than ever, it is now time to resist, and it is my good fortune that in the meeting, the Simla Circle, I met a friend. I stared at them, Joe logged. A friend knew what I was thinking. We could not have no reject it. He is not a Parsi, she would never allow it. So I had to go along with pretending I'm all right with being married off. I didn't want to break her heart, but I want to fight, and I want to do it with him, with Simla Circle. She had been lying to us all these months. I thought as I imagined her meeting Ratan Babu in secret, receiving the gun, making plans to get married. I was afraid to know more, but too captivated to stop listening. This is all secret information, Benji, Azad Bhai said warningly. So you must keep it to yourself about the Simla Circle. You cannot tell anyone. Dr. Banerjee stepped forward menacingly. This is not a joke, sister. One word out of this room and hell will rain down. Guruji has not even approved that you should know all this. I didn't know what to say. My next words were setters, but we are not allowed to. Afri knows we cannot involve in political resistance. It's the condition on which we were allowed to stay at the hotel. They will take it away from us. Nobody is allowed, Ajad announced flatly. Yet we do it. putting our lives at risk. An army for men waits for the day we manage to overthrow the British government. Once this happens, our leaders will quickly form our own government and India will finally be free. Guruji will ensure that this will happen soon. Guruji is our leader, Afrin quickly explained. It is through his guidance that the Simla circle moved forward. And what do you do? I asked her, finding it hard to keep the accusation out of my voice. I too wanted to be free from the people who treated us like servants in our land, against whom our father had died fighting, but we had agreed to the restrictions and Afrin was well aware of that. We could not walk down the lower bazaar and participate in the women's strike and satyagrah. We could not pass around the Indian flag or go around singing Vande Mataram. We were only allowed to grit our teeth and serve tea to the British. I know I can't be seen outside protesting. I know that very well, Nalini. I know the impact of breaking the agreement we have signed, but what I am doing is helping the cause. I answer letter, read the analyze the newspaper and collect the present the information to Guruji, but sometimes are changing and we must fight now if we can. I want to follow our father's footsteps. It's the only way to make him proud of us. Not necessarily I offered unconvincingly. If Noor found out, we were done for. I stared around helplessly, caught in the middle of my fairy sister about to stake her life and my other sister would have given up everything in her life to protect ours. Behenji, it is our land, our home, said Ajad, and we must not be scared to defend it. It is your bad luck you had to find out like this, Ratan Babu said. Afrin untied me. Now remember to keep quiet, sister. About the Simla circle, I nodded, promising to keep their secret, my heart uneasy. And the wedding, I asked. We will tell her in the next couple of days. She will have to accept it. We are already married, and don't worry, that's my responsibility, Ratan Babu said. I knew I did not want to be there the day we did. When we were finally released and allowed to go, I followed her and Ratan Babu out. Noor will be so angry, I could not help saying. Afrin and Ratan Babu glanced at each other. Swear on me, you will not be mentioned in the Simla circle, Afrin said. I nodded, eager to not disappoint her, to approve that I could be trusted with the secret, even though my conscience said otherwise. If only I had taken the other path and told Noor everything right from the start, perhaps I would have been able to stop the chain of events that haunt us till this date. तो गाइज अभी इतने तक रहने देते हैं और देखते हैं. थोड़ा सा अच्छा लग रहा है कहानी की. अब उसकी बहन ने, जो कि चलो आउटकास्ट मैरिज चलती रहती है, बट वो आउटकास्ट ही नहीं बल्कि जिससे उसने शादी की है वो एक तरह से शिमला सर्कल ग्रुप है जो कि इंडिया को आज़ादी दिलाने के लिए लड़ रहे हैं. बट सीक्रेटली वो अपना प्लान बना रहे हैं, धीरे धीरे कुछ ना कुछ कर रहे हैं. बट आगे क्या होता है, और नलिनी जो कि अभी अगेंस्ट है इस ग्रुप के, क्या वो इस ग्रुप में ज्वाइन हो जाएगी अपनी बहन के साथ, या फिर वो सारे सीक्रेट्स जो है वो नूर को बता देगी, और फिर अफरीन का क्या होगा वो तो आगे पता चलेगा. तो चलिए मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट एपिसोड में. एक तरह से ये सीरीज चल रही है जिसके नेक्स्ट एपिसोड में हम देखते हैं कि क्या होगा. तो थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग एंड डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक एंड कमेंट योर फेवरेट बुक. थैंक्स, बाय बाय.